Welcome to basic training. Ready to rock and roll? Don't worry, no one's going to ask you to do push-ups. However, we will be asking you to do some other exercises, things that will probably stretch your mental muscles in new ways. We won't try mastering everything at once. Instead, we'll take one step at a time, focusing on each of the core areas you may need to beat this addiction and achieve long-lasting change. Now that we're more aware of the addiction cycle and some of its hidden choice points, we realize that there are multiple moments where we have the option to step out and move in a positive direction toward recovery. While this may sound simple, remember, it's not for wimps. In this video, we're going to give you a tool to help ground and stabilize you when that urge to use pornography comes around. If you pull out this ninja tool every time an urge arises, you will find yourself getting stronger with each battle and leaving those fights with fewer scars. You ready for this? All right, we call it STAR, which stands for Step Back and Observe. Take a few conscious breaths. Ask yourself what you really want. Respond in a healthy way. In olden times, when people were lost at sea, they would look to the North Star for guidance, a fixed point that could help them find the right direction. In a similar way, this star can help us anchor ourselves when we're feeling especially vulnerable and starting to get pulled back into the addiction cycle. To begin, let's talk about the S in STAR. Step back and observe. As the urge to use is coming up inside of you, it can be helpful to step back, calmly observe the situation, and thoughtfully recognize what is really happening. What am I really feeling here? What kinds of thoughts are hitting me? How does my body feel right now? If we can do that one small step successfully, our chance of breaking that cycle and moving toward freedom has already grown enormously. Now, this will take practice, and it's not going to be easy. But give it a try sometime. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, start practicing now. And whenever that urge comes, stop and take a step back. Taking a step back doesn't guarantee that we'll break the cycle. If we don't follow that step with something else, we'll likely just fall right back into autopilot and continue down the same path of addiction. So let's talk about the rest of the STAR. Even after stepping back and observing the situation, it's easy to still feel unstable and pulled by the urge. Because of that, this next step is important. Taking a few slow, conscious breaths. This allows you to focus your thoughts and settle your mind. Close your eyes, and you'll notice your lungs fill up with air slowly, and then release. For thousands of years, people have been using breathing exercises as a way to ground themselves in the face of tough challenges. Brain scientists are discovering that something as simple as mindful breathing can help calm your body and mind by short-circuiting the charging chemical rush to your brain. At this point, what you end up doing is still your choice, of course. But if you make the choice from a more settled place, you're more likely to do what you really want. And that leads to the next step, the A in STAR. Ask yourself what you really want. This will help you tune into your true desires, what you really want and what you really hope for in the long term. Rather than just following whatever impulse hits your body at any given moment, give yourself a chance to tune into your core values and sense what you want deep down. Once you've oriented yourself to what you really want, you will be better able to respond in a way that is in line with whatever your true desires are. But that doesn't mean the decision is settled. It's still up to you to respond according to what you really want. The last step of STAR, then, is to respond in a healthy way and make a decision about what you're going to do. By stepping back and taking a breath and asking yourself what you really want, you're no longer driven to react automatically. Instead, you're in a position to make an authentic choice, a decision true to what you really want. As you access that place of calm, we don't think that feeding a pornography addiction will be your choice. Like others, you will probably begin to find that the deeper part of you doesn't really want to use as much as you thought. It wants something far more than porn could ever offer. At the point where you are making your decision, it can be helpful to turn to another activity and replace the urge with something better. Like what? Well, telling you to replace the urge with something better is easier said than done. Simply turning the page of the magazine or flipping to the next channel on television won't cut it. You're going to need something powerful to replace it if you're actually going to be able to overpower that chemical rush that started in your brain. This is where your passions come in. Passions are things that you truly love doing or pursuing. It's more than just liking something. No, this goes much deeper than that. Passions are things that we can hardly live without, things that make us who we are. These can include sports, mastering a musical instrument, spending time in the mountains, dancing, writing in your journal, blogging, or taking apart and rebuilding a computer. Whatever your passions are, these are the things that are powerful enough to compete with and beat an urge. Our suggestion is to keep a list of your passions close at hand. Whenever an urge shows up, you can take that list out and see which one is most realistic to pursue at that moment. You may also want to have a few passions that you can accomplish at any time, regardless of where you are and what hour of day it is, such as writing, art, personal exercise, or music. That way, if an urge hits at midnight, you don't have to try to call your buddies to organize a pickup game of basketball. We've found that activities with physical exertion, such as playing sports, running, or going on a hike, have an incredible ability to reset the prefrontal cortex in the brain, which is where decisions are made. It's like hitting the restart button. If you've replaced the urge and it is still bothering you, it can be good to add the company of others for a while to provide a distraction and further motivate you not to use. What if you're not sure if you have any passions? That's okay. Sometimes it takes time and experience to stumble across things that you feel passionate about. Be patient and keep trying new things. And we promise that sooner or later, you will find an activity, hobby, or idea that will be more powerful than an urge. So what do you say? Are you ready to try this out? Let's say you're checking your email and you accidentally click on a link that immediately takes you to a pornographic website. You're shocked and you quickly close the browser. You try and forget what you saw, but it's too late. Those images have triggered a release of chemicals in your brain and you start to feel a powerful urge coming on. This is the perfect opportunity to use STAR. So step back and observe what's really going on. Take a few conscious breaths to soothe the wave of emotions and regain control. Then ask yourself what you really want, truly and not just in the moment. As you do, you remember that giving in now will only be temporarily satisfying and definitely won't make you feel more fulfilled in the long run. Now, at this point, we're not out of the woods yet, but you do feel just a little more in control as you make a very important decision. What to do next? This is the moment where we can either fall back into the addiction cycle or choose to respond to the urge by replacing it with something better, one of your passions. And after a short struggle, you choose to leave the room and go outside to hang out with your friends. Oh, congratulations, you just won the battle. At first glance, some might mistake STAR as a simple willpower bench press. Like, all right, no problem, just choose to turn away. That's easy. Please understand, that's not what we're saying. Remember, getting out of your addiction isn't simply a matter of trying harder. Instead, it's a matter of fighting smart. And that's the whole point of STAR. 4 steps to help ground you and interrupt the autopilot of the addiction cycle, helping you tune in to what you really want. Notice that there are 4 steps, rather than just choose something different. We've also seen that if you just skip to the last step, you'll miss the full impact of STAR. Be sure to slow the process down and spend as much time as needed on each step. As you practice STAR, you will come out the other end more aware of the choices you want to be making, rather than defaulting to autopilot. Although this skill can support a healthy response, that won't make it suddenly easy. Practicing this skill will take some real work, and moving in new directions still takes great courage, effort, and dedication. With what we've learned so far, you're prepared to fight smart. And if every urge went away when we turned to one of our passions, we'd be set. We all know, however, that urges can sometimes follow you around and chomp at your heels like a pesky puppy. Urges can be stubborn, especially if you've been using for a while. So, to combat that, let's talk a little more about the R in STAR. Respond in a healthy way. We've already talked about one powerful way to respond, and that's to replace the urge with something better, one of your passions. While responding in this way can often be enough to help you during a battle, there's another way to respond that can be powerful when the urge doesn't seem to be going away. This time, instead of turning away from the urge, try something brave. Make eye contact with it. Hold your position with your feet firmly planted on the ground. Calmly observe what you are feeling and thinking. Try to stay curious, present, and calm as you watch your urge. Step back and observe your experience like we discussed doing with your thoughts, as if you were watching a sporting event on TV. Notice how the urge changes and moves over time, like a wave in the ocean. Once an urge begins and you feel the desire to use, most people generally believe that the craving will continue to increase in intensity until they give into it. Isn't that how we usually think? From this perspective, an urge is a straight line that will continue to increase upward in intensity until we act on it or stop it somehow. When you actually watch an urge close up, however, it can surprise you. In reality, an urge is less like a rising line and more like a wave. It swells to a crest or a peak, and then if we wait it out, it will naturally subside. In other words, urges and cravings, no matter how strong, will eventually go away. This is always the case, not sometimes, always. Sometimes the urge can take longer to pass, and it may feel like it won't ever go away. But trust us, it will pass. Some people call this urge surfing. While it takes absolutely zero energy and effort to give in to an urge, choosing to stand, face, and watch an urge takes something else. It takes courage. Doing this can definitely be challenging, mostly because you want to do something more than just watch it on a recliner with a bag of popcorn. Like having a bug bite itch. You're going to want to do something to make it go away or scratch it, which would only make it worse. When urge surfing is done right, you do neither of those things. Instead, you stay present, step back from the urge, and watch it. Even if it gets tough, even if you have to hang on during moments of intensity. To get to the end of an urge, try focusing on your breathing for a couple seconds before returning to the urge. I mean, you're probably thinking, are you kidding? If I don't do something, the urge will win. You know, most people think the same thing when they first hear us tell them to try to step back from the urge and observe it. You can see why this is a master level technique. It's difficult, but it's incredibly powerful and will prove to be one of the most effective ways of responding. And once you become an expert, you'll notice you'll have the ability to handle impulses in many different situations. It'll take time, but as you start practicing a little bit here and there, you'll be a black belt before you know it. To recap, we've now explored 2 different ways to respond with STAR. The first way deals with replacing the urge by getting engaged with one of your passions. The second way involves stepping back from the urge so it is separate from who you are, and then just simply watching and observing it. As you do this, pay attention to your surroundings and how you feel in that moment, as well as your body and your thoughts. Then you can just simply watch the urge take on a life, grow to full strength, and eventually dissolve into nothing, just like an ocean wave. Ready to try this out? Imagine you're checking your email and you see an advertisement for pornography in your spam folder. You can feel the desire to open it creeping in. In the past, you would have just given in immediately. However, now that you have STAR, you decide to step back from the situation, take a few conscious breaths, and ask yourself what you really want, and then respond. But this time, you respond differently. Instead of replacing the urge with a passion, you decide to stay present and breathe. You stay conscious and recognize the emotions you're feeling. You notice the urge grow in full strength and watch it. Like a scientist studying an object's behavior or a hunter in the forest watching an animal. Patiently, you wait for it to dissipate and scatter. It's hard for a minute, but you stick with it. And then it's gone. You did it. Okay, great, you're thinking, but doesn't the urge or craving come back again? Sure, it can, and it probably will at first. This will give you plenty of chances to practice, but each time you do, the intensity of the urge will decrease a little bit. And over time, you are slowly retraining your brain to not be driven by any passing urge. Some days, of course, you may not want to practice STAR. You may decide to just give in and let the urge win. Now that's your choice. But realize each time you do, you're probably setting yourself up for stronger, more powerful urges to come. Did you know that although acting on an impulse relieves the urge in the moment, it actually makes the urge stronger over time because it's reinforcing the brain's neural pathways that lead to using? By contrast, each time you practice STAR, you are blazing another pathway in your brain. This new pathway says, there's the urge, I'm no slave, and I won't be moved today. Not by this. The longer you practice STAR, the less intense the urges will become because you're not feeding them or ignoring them. Bottom line, the key to not having to face powerful urges for the rest of your life is to learn to respond wisely and powerfully now. In the meantime, remember to be patient with yourself. It may take time to get the hang of it. You may fall and give in to an urge. But it's important that you don't give up. Keep practicing STAR until it becomes second nature for you. After a while, you'll get the hang of it and it'll be easier and easier. The exciting news is that you are learning smart ways to let impulses pass and building confidence in your ability to endure discomfort and stay present through intensity. We've just spent some significant time exploring different ways to strengthen your mind's capacity to respond to addictive patterns. Take as long as you need to make sure you understand how to implement STAR in your life so you can be better prepared when an urge does come. We just finished talking about ways you can defend yourself when urges come around. Now it's time to explore some other strategies that will help you prevent future battles. In Greek mythology, the Gorgon monster was feared because her dark powers paralyzed and turned to stone anyone who gazed upon her directly. In spite of her reputation, people were so awestruck by her appearance that they said, "Oh, I'll be all right if I just look at her a little bit." In a similar way, sometimes we think just a little pornography won't be that big of a deal. Since pornography is transmitted visually, it's easy to think it's just mental stimulation and not nearly as harmful as a physical drug. And when someone wants to quit after using for a while, it's very easy to think, hey, just a little bit here and there won't pull me back in. Well, those are illusions. Let's review the facts, the brain science. Even one look at pornography triggers a rush of pleasure chemicals in the brain and releases other chemicals into the bloodstream. Like blood alcohol levels in a drunk driver, this chemical flood throughout the body can distort the judgment and overpower a deeper sense of what's best, effectively blinding individuals of their true desires and interests. Did you know that studies have actually shown that blinking lights and rapidly changing images on television and computer screens literally have a hypnotic effect on viewers? Where we direct our attention is huge. The effects of what we take in visually are particularly powerful. That rush of pleasure chemicals that pornography use provokes can lead to a dependency for those images and eventually addiction. Therefore, the substance of pornography is as physical as anything. As physical as taking that one drink, shooting up one more time, having one more drag, smoking one more cigarette. Bottom line, where we look is a big deal. Even one glance is enough to stimulate the pleasure chemicals and start the hypnotizing process that blinds us to reality, ultimately leaving individuals mesmerized and effectively turned to stone by the modern world's version of Medusa. So don't be fooled by the just once philosophy. Look around you at others and at your own experience. Even just once will leave its mark. If you are serious about finding the deepest sense of stability, you might consider adopting a zero-tolerance mindset on your way to constructing a porn-free lifestyle. Now, what does this mean? It's more than just a half-hearted attempt. It means more than, okay, I'll set up a filter. Zero tolerance is about committing to a porn-free future and not stopping until you get there. By making the commitment to zero tolerance, you are moving in the direction of a complete change, rather than just a general improvement. Remember, some materials that are not technically pornographic can also set you up for urges to use pornography and deprive you of your strength to resist. Television programs, pictures, movies, songs, and books that make light of casual sex and glorify the anything goes attitude teach a similar message to that of pornography. As you determine what to include in your life, identify not only what drags you down, but what also lifts you up. Recognize that if you go even 1 inch past the line you vowed not to cross, it will get in the way of your ability to reason and think straight. A 2-inch deviation on a railroad track can turn into thousands of miles of difference later on. Are you feeling overwhelmed with this zero tolerance video? Take some deep breaths. Just close your eyes and breathe for a minute. Don't worry, what's being said here isn't the cold turkey approach. Just like we said earlier, we're talking about committing to a pornography-free future and not stopping till you get there. We're not telling you that you have to be at the finish line of the marathon right now, but that you should commit to finishing the race and not quit. Committing to a zero tolerance mindset will help you get there. You have to keep moving your feet, keep taking actions to overcome the addiction. And that includes being conscious of those things preventing you from moving forward. That includes being more sensitive to the media around you, since there's a lot of it, and it will prevent you from moving forward. Ingesting media that glorifies or makes light of sexual things is like trying to run a marathon with weights strapped to your legs. It's going to wear you down and make the effort of crossing the finish line much harder, maybe impossible. Okay? Breathe again. You cool? While this doesn't all sound related to pornography, making positive, smaller decisions will break you out of the addiction cycle and assist in a commitment to change. Stumbling back into pornography cannot happen without your cooperation on some level. It should be empowering to know that you have control. I mean, it's up to you. We promise that this fight with addiction will be a lot easier if you commit to a zero tolerance mindset. For anyone facing addiction, it's easy to feel messed up internally. We can be so focused on internal stuff that we sometimes forget just how much our environment can influence us. In any battle, however, ignoring our surroundings can be dangerous. Some of you know the computer game SimCity. In this game, you as the player are king. Your objective is to create a culture and city that achieves your goals. You decide the manufacturing, the patterns of consumption, the trade, the entertainment, everything. Now imagine for a moment the game's manufacturer took a turn to the dark side and came out with a new version entitled SimCity Lifelong Addict Edition, where the goal is to create a society and culture that fosters the various kinds of addictions. After passing levels 1 and 2, drugs and tobacco, you're on to the real challenge, creating a society that incubates pornography addiction. What would that look like? Think about it for a minute. Based on what we see in real life, some good strategies could include limiting the amount of time people spend interacting. The more time alone, the better. When they do spend time with people, focus their interaction on superficial things, such as how someone looks or doesn't look. Avoid getting deep and thoughtful at all costs. Little or no exercise and limited sunlight. Whatever it takes for their bodies to feel constantly unwell and anxious. Make sure individuals are exposed to near constant media, music, video, phone, with almost no time to sit and contemplate. Do these conditions sound familiar at all? Well, the current society we're embedded in is setting us up to fall into serious addictive patterns on a number of levels, and not just with pornography. It's important that we be aware of this so we can fortify ourselves against the problem. Maybe you really aren't so weak. Maybe you're really living in a tough society, and maybe this makes you feel helpless because it's difficult to see how we can change the world around us. Well, how about we start with something that we can control? The environment we embrace immediately around us, specifically in our own home. Is it possible to create an environment that neutralizes and even combats these larger trends? On your march toward greater freedom, attention to your home base can be crucial. In every war, you need places of safety where you can be protected and rejuvenated. What happens when those places have become compromised and infiltrated by the very thing we're battling? It is not uncommon for someone in your situation to be living in a home environment that makes it easy to find that very thing you're trying to escape. Imagine how difficult it is to try to quit smoking if the addict is constantly around other smokers. Being frequently reminded of the immediately satisfying effects of something we're trying to quit makes it that much harder to resist. We are human, and sometimes we feel like we can only take a certain amount of temptation before we cave in. And that's why it's crucial to secure your home base, so that it's a source of strength instead of a place of danger and vulnerability. This is another sense of the word fortify, to strengthen and secure a place with reinforcements. When a fortress has a point of weakness, a place where it's easy to attack, new walls are built. For those fighters serious about victory, creating a sanctuary is essential for a successful recovery. By placing your fortress on a hill, gravity will be your comrade as the opponent stumbles up the slope, exhausted before he can reach you. So let's talk about your own home base. Has it been infiltrated by pornography so far? If so, how? Make a list of ways that pornography is accessible in your own home and the different channels through which it has entered in the past. Whether that's cable TV, DVDs, tablets, cell phones, gaming devices, home computers, laptops, books, magazines. By listing them out, you'll have a better sense of what areas of your home need the most fortification. Let's start with TV and movies. Whether it's HBO or standard cable, you can find a lot of programming that can lead you to using pornography. It doesn't have to be hardcore pornography to trigger a release of chemicals in your brain. All it takes is a few seconds of arousing content to set you on the path down into the addiction cycle. Think back to the moments after watching television or watching a certain type of movie when you felt most vulnerable. Can you start to notice specific things that you saw that made you start to entertain the idea of using? What about the internet, porn's favorite playground? This is most likely where the majority of us fall, right? Getting us to stumble across pornography online is where the porn industry focuses most of its energy. And they're pretty good at it, aren't they? Whether it's an endless series of pop-up windows, email spam, relentless advertisements, stealth sites, porn sites with seemingly harmless URLs, or chat rooms, the porn industry knows exactly what they're doing in their efforts to get you hooked. So rather than fall victim to these cunning attempts, we suggest you draw a kind of firewall between you and pornography. If there's a certain news page or website that is almost always a precursor to your using, add it to the filter. Make some hard choices. ESPN instead of Sports Illustrated, NBC instead of HBO. Maybe for you, it's not visiting YouTube for the time being. One person we know wanted to stop her habit of sexualized chatting, so she removed the chatting software from her computer and blocked the sites. If you have a vulnerability to pornography and you spend lots of time wandering the web, before you know it, you're going to get exposed to pornographic material. So, what can you do instead? Well, how about this? When you go online, have a mental list of goals or errands to accomplish in a certain time frame for each. We call this browsing with a purpose. Maybe the list is check Facebook, of course, check your email, write a school paper, check out your favorite band's new music video, and blog about your cat's new sweater vest. Stick to it, then log off. The second you veer off course, you're setting yourself up for a setback. Apply the zero tolerance mindset and stick to that list. Sometimes it requires actually installing software that will filter the internet and keep your computer safe from inappropriate content. True filtering is difficult to achieve without the assistance from someone else in your home to whom you can be accountable. You might have to work with others on keeping the filters bulletproof. It will be best if you can get the help from someone who lives with you in doing this, if you feel comfortable. If not, you can at least secure your own room. If that alone isn't doing the trick, a foolproof tactic would be to disconnect from any media sources that provide a temptation and get rid of the internet for the time being. We know it's kind of hard to believe, but people have been known to survive without it. During this media detox, only allow yourself to access the web if necessary and in public areas, such as the city library or a school computer lab. Realize that the issue of securing your home base is more than the issue of technology. We need to also surround ourselves with pictures, music, and literature that will inspire positive, uplifting thoughts. You have a choice in how safe you want your home environment to be. It would be easy to make a half-hearted effort, but we challenge you to be brutally honest with yourself about your home turf vulnerabilities. Think of this as similar to having a broken door at home, knowing that not only does someone want to attack you, but also that it has happened before, over and over. How committed are you to fixing that door and installing deadbolts? We may have to be bold in our efforts and rally whatever resources are needed to keep pornography from infiltrating our home if we really want to have a safe haven. Are you willing? How about smaller things? Are you willing to put a filter on your computer? What about moving the computer to another, more public part of the home? Are you willing to get rid of songs or videos, take down pictures, or throw out movies? Look, you can do it. And remember, for fighters serious about victory, securing your home base is not a luxury. It's crucial and possibly the difference between freedom and captivity. If an addiction goes on long enough, pornography begins to infiltrate and compromise even our own heart, our core center place. it's now time to start talking about something even bigger than addiction. Think back to the last moment when you used. What was happening, really happening then? For many of us, in that moment, we decided the only thing that mattered was feeling good right then and there. Everything else, previous commitments, other people, other needs, were temporarily ignored. The only thing we cared about more than anything else was how we felt right then. In a way, even if you hate this addiction, on some level, the pornography reflects something you wanted and chose in that moment. In those moments where you use, you want pornography's rush more than anything else. You see, pornography addiction is far more than just a behavior to stop. It goes way beyond that. The problem is that pornography hijacks our desires and the very things that motivate us. And because of this, ultimately, your desire to change must be more powerful than your desire for pornography. Let's say that one more time. Your desire to change must be more powerful than your desire for pornography. It may take a while before that desire for freedom is strong enough on a consistent basis to overcome this addiction. In the meantime, you will need an anchor, something to hold you steady through the raging storm. Is there something, anything, that holds your loyalty stronger than porn? One guy we know struggled with pornography addiction for years. In his moment of greatest desperation and desire to change, he shattered his computer monitor with a sledgehammer. In a box with the broken pieces of his computer, he left a note for his wife, simply stating, "I love you more." We're not asking you to sledgehammer your computer. We're simply asking you this. Is there anything you love more? Is there something or someone in your life that you love more than those videos, those images, those messages? What or who is it? It is possible to become so fixed and set on getting away from pornography that we forget or ignore the very things and people in our life that we love more. What if we decide we're not going to ignore them anymore? What if they became anchors for us in this fight? Most anchors fall into one of three different categories: people, passions, or purpose. Let's talk about people first. This refers to those in your life that you feel are threatened by your addiction, such as a girlfriend, boyfriend, a close friend, your family, or even your future family. The guy who smashed his computer realized that his wife was more important to him than his pornography addiction, and therefore his wife was an anchor for him. We talked about passions when we taught you about STAR. These are activities or ideas that make us tick, things that we truly love doing or pursuing. The more we work on our passions, the happier we become. As many of you know, addictions have a funny way of getting in the way of our true passions. That is why passions can act as an anchor for us. They can counteract the power of an urge when we're not willing to give up what we're doing or working on to satisfy our pornography addiction. Purpose is something we all strive to find in our lives. Without it, we feel lost, and the slightest breeze can sway us off course. And some find purpose in the idea that they want to be a good spouse and parent one day. Others want to be a good example for their peers. Many find purpose in their religious beliefs. Whatever your purpose is, know this. Addiction is the enemy to true purpose. They cannot coexist. Identifying your purpose or desired purpose can serve as an anchor for when you compare the temporary gratification you get when using porn to what you feel deep down is your true purpose in life. We recommend that you find at least one anchor in each of these categories: people, passions, and purpose, and write them down. This will serve as a reminder to you when things get tough. So if you want to purge pornography from your life, what will take its place? In the moments when you're bored or lonely or tired or frustrated or anxious, where will you turn besides pornography? If we can't answer these kinds of questions, it's going to be that much harder to really become free. When it gets difficult, remember, this is a real war. And the place where the true battle is happening is your own heart and mind. Once again, it's not enough to just reject pornography. You need something to hold on to, something or someone to anchor you. It's time to take command of your own heart and reassert your deeper desires. It's time to practice loving something or someone else more than pornography. Along the road to recovery, it can be easy to think, I can do this, I'm strong enough, I just need to try harder, work harder, and make it happen. I don't need any help. We all like to believe that kind of thing. But what if it's not always true? What if at times like this, we're not strong enough on our own? What if just trying harder and working harder is not guaranteed to lead you to freedom? I mean, unless you're secretly a superhero with superhuman powers, you might not be able to overcome this without someone else's help. And we're not talking about therapists, although therapy is great if it's something you have available. We're also not just talking about us at Fortify, although you've heard plenty about how we're fighting this together. We're actually talking about the people in your life that are around you every day, in close quarters, seeing you and sharing the same air you breathe. Among that network of people are a few that may be the key to finding your freedom. How? The answer is one huge factor: accountability. While positive relationships provide a lot of things we all need, when it comes to recovery, one of the most important things good relationships afford us is someone to whom we can be held accountable. Let's illustrate this point by a story someone shared with us. After years of struggling with addiction, a young man told his dad about how he could not stop using pornography after months and months of trying. Despite his efforts to beat pornography, he had repeatedly fallen back into it, and he was scared. Immediately after telling his dad, a feeling of relief came to this young man. There was almost an immediate burst of hope as his dad listened carefully and cried with him. After that, everything changed for him, though not overnight. It wasn't just the filtering system that his dad helped him set up, or the hugs and support he would always get at the end of the check-in conversations. It was also the agreement they reached to talk once a week about how he was doing with his problem. Knowing that his dad would be asking, and that he would be sharing with complete honesty, added a whole new level of motivation. Trust and hope propelled him gradually to full freedom. Let us ask you again, this time directly. Do you have someone like this in your life? Someone who can stick with you and be willing to ask you tough questions about how you're doing? While it would be nice to have a parent be this person, someone in your immediate family may not always be the most available or supportive. Having the right person to support you is critical. We'll leave it up to you to decide who that person should be. We know you'll pick the right person. With that being said, anyone you trust can work. I mean, your aunt, your uncle, cousin, neighbor, school counselor, friend, or religious leader. You might find it beneficial to have several people to whom you can be accountable. As you probably already know, it's easy to keep a pornography problem a secret and not tell anyone, just as accountability can help you break free. Isolation can make the problem worse. But the good news is that your participation in this program may be the sign that you're willing to break out of isolation on this issue. Look, we understand how difficult it can be to share this problem with someone else. It's normal to feel embarrassed or shameful. The problem is, if you don't reach out now, it will likely be a lot harder later on. Because the deeper your addiction gets, the more motivation you'll have to hide it and keep it a secret. Realize that many people have struggled with this problem, and you're not alone. So think twice about doing this on your own. If you do happen to think you've got some superhuman powers, remember, even superheroes rely on a sidekick in their hour of need. In the fight that we're exploring together, it's easy to focus on the times we fail and fall, coming away with a vision centered around only our bad times. What about the days we are strong? The times that we let the urge pass? You may not have thought to keep track of good days, or any days for that matter. Most people rarely keep track of good or bad days, and therefore they don't have a clear picture of what kind of addiction they're dealing with. How often do you give into your addiction? What is the longest you've been able to go without a setback? What time of day do you normally struggle with the most? What kinds of activities led you to using most often? These are the types of questions that addicts who are serious about recovery often consider. They know exactly when their last several setbacks were and how much time there was between each setback. They can start to see the patterns emerge, such as the time of day or which day of the week they struggle with the most. That is why if you ask a former alcoholic how long it's been since they had their last sip of alcohol, they can often tell you down to the very hour. They know that date as well as their own birthday. One recovering alcoholic told us he doesn't focus on getting to 5 years from now. Instead, he focuses on conquering each day and sometimes each hour. At first, that's what it took, he told us. But now that he has been sober for more than 5 years, he says that it became much easier and that he didn't know he could be so happy. You see, recovering addicts track that information to keep them strong even when they feel vulnerable. Knowing that data about your own addiction is crucial because it will not only help you see patterns in your addiction, but it will also give you motivation as you measure your success. To help you start tracking, we're going to give you a very simple way to measure this information. We call it your battle tracker. This is essentially a calendar to track your battles with a victory or a setback. To start, pick the day you want to report on. At the top of that day, you will see the words victory and setback. Click on the one that best describes how that day went. If you had a victory on that day, it will be highlighted in green, and then you're all done for that day. If you had a setback that day, then it will be highlighted in red, and then you'll need to select from the drop-down menu some key details of that setback, such as how, where, and when, so that you can learn from your battles. At the top of the calendar, you will see a percentage number. We like to call this your victory rate. Each month, the victory rate will start over. That way, you'll be able to see your progress as you continue through the program, even after you finished. You can keep using the battle tracker as long as you need. Don't think that tool will go away as soon as you complete the program. As long as you have a login, you can come back as often as you like. Also, don't get too discouraged if your victory rate is a little low in the beginning. What matters most is not where you are, but where you're heading. Keeping record of your battles on your battle tracker will help you recognize patterns in your behavior and will give you the necessary information to make adjustments and gain an advantage over your addiction. As you continue through the program, you might notice that you have setbacks at specific times or in specific locations or when you are using a specific device. That information is huge. Knowing this information can help you change your behavior for good. One of our fighters described the battle tracker as being one of his most powerful weapons. When you can actually see and record your day-to-day battles and track your successes and setbacks, you gain an understanding that will give you clarity and strength to fight against pornography. In addition to measuring your behaviors, you might also consider making short-term goals. Short-term goals can make a larger goal, like overcoming your addiction, seem manageable. These goals could focus on slightly adjusting your schedule to avoid moments of possible vulnerability. For example, if you found that late nights are often when you give in to urges, you might set a goal to go to bed earlier to avoid staying up too late. Your goals could also focus on breaking your longest streak with no setbacks, or setting up a weekly sit-down with your accountability partner to go over your progress. Tracking your daily progress with the battle tracker will also help you recognize which goals were most effective in helping you win battles. Make sure when you set short or long-term goals that they follow the SMART goals formula. This stands for goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Let's test a couple of goals out and see if they pass the SMART goals test. Goal 1, be better. Okay, is it specific? Not really. What are we supposed to be better at? Is it measurable? Nope. Is it achievable? Well, yeah, but according to what? Is it realistic? Sure, we can always do better, but again, it's a little too vague. Is it time-bound? Not at all. Goal 2. This month, I am only going to get on the internet on my home computer, which is located in the family room, and will only use it between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. each day. Is it specific? Very. Is it measurable? Yep, we can measure exactly what days we did and did not accomplish this goal. Now, is it achievable? You bet. Is it realistic? Absolutely. Is this time-bound? Once again, yes. We clearly stated that this was a daily goal that will last the duration of an entire month. By following this formula, you will be able to set effective and powerful goals. From this point on, we encourage you to start using your battle tracker and to set short-term goals. Combine this offensive strategy with the strategies we discussed earlier, and you'll really start to become a warrior, a real fighter. Congratulations on completing basic training. But don't think just because you finish watching this module means you can stop practicing what you learned. Not even close. We'll say it again. This is going to take practice, and a lot of it. You will need to practice and develop your strategies in order to be serious about recovery. How serious you are about daily practice can make the difference between how free you are in 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months from now. That being said, let's do a quick practice with STAR together, right now. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Of course, you're probably not dealing with an urge to look at pornography right at this moment, but that doesn't stop us from being able to practice the process of using STAR so that we're prepared when an urge does hit. First, let us ask how it's been going for you. How many times have you had the chance to use STAR in your daily battles? Of those times when you used STAR, what was your experience like? How, if at all, did it impact your decisions? And it's okay to still be figuring it out. It may take some time to make STAR a natural part of the process. Right now, we want you to step back. This time not from an urge, but from your current situation. Slow down and observe your surroundings. Detach yourself from the room you're in and the people you're around. Focus your visual attention on a single spot, or close your eyes to remove distractions. Can you feel your life slowing down just a bit? Now take a few conscious breaths. Notice the air filling your lungs, and then release. Keep slowly breathing in and out. As time seems to slow down, you start to feel a sense of control and clarity. Do you think you're in a good place to ask yourself what you really want? You should be in a calm state to think clearly and really be in tune with what is important to you in the short and long term. At this point, you should be ready to respond. Do you feel comfortable making a decision and moving forward in a direction that makes sense? Wouldn't it be great if you could be this in control when an urge to view pornography hits you? Well, you can be. That's the whole point of STAR. As you keep practicing, you get better at each of the 4 steps. You gain a control that will allow you to make your own choices, not the choices your addiction wants. Try practicing STAR several times a day, with or without an urge present.